Behavioral self-control is just one of the 10 competencies that define the social emotional intelligence self-management. And so what exactly is behavioral self-control? Well, behavioral self-control is being able to control disruptive emotions and impulses. So think of a 3-year-old who's really just learning, emotions and feelings, and occasionally we will see them throw themselves on the ground and they'll kick and they'll scream and they'll go on. So obviously at that stage of their life, they do not yet have that emotional self-control. And so those disruptive emotions that come up for them when somebody says no because they really want something is what we're talking about when we're talking about behavioral self-control. As we grow, we learn strategies that help us deal with those disruptive emotions and those impulses. So again, a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old out shopping with their mother, and the mother turns around to do something and they grab a chocolate bar and open it and start eating it because they want it. They don't yet have that impulse control, and they don't yet understand society's rules about, well, you buy things first before you eat it. And so, we're talking about little people. Well, big people sometimes behave in the same manner. And so individuals who are feeling, disruptive emotions, an individual who they really may have cared for, hurts them, and they don't know exactly what happened, but they know that they feel bad. They feel that they've been wronged, and therefore that impulse to react takes over, and they scream and they curse and they swear, and they may become physically aggressive. And again, impulse control. They don't have the strategies yet, or they haven't been able to identify that the emotion is coming up for them, why the emotion is coming up for them, as we discussed in our previous videos regarding self-awareness. And then they can't express how they're feeling in a manner that conveys to the other person how they're feeling and why they've been hurt. And so, if at a very young age, at the age of 3, 4, and 5, the impulse control and the emotional impulses are not discussed with the individual, strategies are not provided to them so that they can express themselves, and then we're going to see that continuing behavior because they've never learned to do any different. And of course, the longer that a behavior is engaged in, the harder it is to change that pattern of behavior. And so when individuals become adolescents and they haven't been, provided boundaries regarding their impulse control, and they're out with friends, then they're going to have a really hard time potentially saying no when somebody asks them to do something that they know is wrong, but they still want to do it. They can't control that impulse, and they don't have strategies yet to really prepare themselves to say no to potential invitations to engage in behavior that are not in their best interest. And so, again, if individuals are engaging in behavior and it's not beneficial to themselves or society, what are the consequences? And are those consequences immediate so that the person can learn that that impulse that they're engaging in is really not constructive? And they need to find strategies or ways to say no to, one, protect themselves, but to engage appropriately in society. And so it's very, very important that at a very young age, we're teaching individuals about disruptive emotions. All emotions have a purpose. They are important. It's really essential that individuals learn why they're feeling a certain way and to be okay with those feelings, but to not act on them in a negative way, either towards self. So that could be, cutting, it could be using drugs or alcohol, so many different ways. And therefore, excuse me, so when we talk about strategies to help people make new steps in their life, if they have been engaging in, say, cutting, what strategies can we provide for them when they're having those disruptive emotions and that impulse is to cut? What are the strategies that we can teach them to, one, help them understand why those emotions are coming up for them, potentially how to express them in a different way that is less harmful to themselves and the people around them, obviously. And so again, all of these things are so essential, and it really does start with that self-awareness. Once you have a broader self-awareness and understanding of self, then you can start applying that knowledge to your self-management. And, again, do you want to be able to identify how you're feeling, address a person in a constructive way instead of screaming and yelling at them and potentially, hurting a relationship or becoming physical and then charges are laid? It's really in everybody's best interests to learn behavioral self-control. And it can be learned. That's what's so great about social emotional intelligence, that these competencies can be learned at whatever stage of life you're at, if you're willing to participate in the process. And so I want you to take the time to reflect on self and the others who, are close to you in your life. Are you and others aware of those disruptive emotions and impulses? And can you find strategies to help each other be effective in your communication style and reduce harm to yourself and others? And understand that there's consequences to your behavior and therefore boundaries in life that need to be followed. So I hope you found this informative, and in the next videos we will be looking at the other 9 competencies that make up self-management. Be well.